The bread in your pantry right now might contain an ingredient banned in the European Union, China, and dozens of other countries, but it's still perfectly legal to sell in the United States. We're talking about dough conditioners linked to health concerns, preservatives under active FDA review, and whole wheat labels that barely qualify as whole grain at all. Some of the most trusted names in the bread aisle are using formulas that would get pulled off shelves overseas. Today, we're ranking 10 popular bread brands you should think twice about, then revealing 3 brands that actually keep their ingredient list honest. Number 1 might be sitting on your counter right now. Bread feels like the simplest food in your kitchen: flour, water, yeast, salt. But walk down any American bread aisle and read the ingredient panel, and you'll find a much longer list. Dough conditioners, preservatives, added sugars, and additives most people can't pronounce, let alone explain. Some of these ingredients are already restricted or banned in other developed countries because of documented health concerns, yet they remain standard in mainstream U.S. bread production. The FDA regulates food additives differently than the EU, often allowing ingredients to stay on the market unless proven harmful, rather than requiring proof of safety first. We reviewed FDA data, international regulations, and ingredient research to find out which bread brands are cutting corners and which ones are keeping it simple. Let's start with the brand nearly every American household has bought at least once. Number 10, Wonder Bread. Wonder Bread has been a fixture in American kitchens since 1921. Marketed for generations as the wholesome, family-friendly loaf that built strong bodies 12 ways, according to its famous old slogan. But the ingredient list tells a more complicated story. Enriched bleached flour, high fructose corn syrup, and calcium propionate, a mold-inhibiting preservative that a peer-reviewed study published in the Journal of Pediatrics associated with behavioral changes and irritability in some children when consumed in higher amounts. The flour itself is bleached using chemical agents and then fortified with synthetic vitamins to replace nutrients lost during processing, a cycle of stripping and re-adding that whole grain bread never needs in the first place. The takeaway: the softness and shelf life come from a formula, not a family recipe. Next, a brand marketed almost entirely on the word natural, with a label that requires some careful reading. Number 9, Nature's Own. Nature's Own leans hard on imagery of wholesome, simple ingredients, positioning itself as the honest, natural alternative to heavily processed grocery store bread. But in July 2025, a class action lawsuit was filed in California federal court alleging that Flowers Foods, the parent company behind Nature's Own, falsely marketed certain products as free of artificial preservatives, while ascorbic acid still appeared on the ingredient label. Flowers Foods has denied the allegations, and the case remains ongoing. The formula also includes DATEM, a chemically modified dough conditioner used to strengthen gluten structure, along with sodium stearoyl lactylate, an emulsifier that keeps bread soft for weeks past when fresh bread would naturally begin to harden or mold. The takeaway: natural branding is a marketing choice, not a legal guarantee about what's actually inside. Coming up, a bread brand that quietly stopped being what its founders built it to be. Number 8, Oro Wheat. Oro Wheat started as a genuine family bakery in Los Angeles back in 1932, built on a reputation for quality, California-made bread. In 2009, Grupo Bimbo, one of the largest bread manufacturers in the world, acquired the brand and folded it into a much larger industrial supply chain that also produces Sara Lee, Arnold, Entenmann's, and Thomas's English muffins. Longtime customers have noted online that the texture and density changed noticeably after the acquisition, shifting toward the soft, uniform consistency common across mass-produced bread. The current formula includes dough conditioners and preservatives, standard across Bimbo's broader portfolio, a departure from the simpler recipes the original family bakery was known for. The takeaway: the name on the bag stayed the same, but the company behind it and the formula did not. Next, a bread brand people specifically buy to avoid the very ingredient hiding somewhere else in its formula. Number 7, Arnold. Arnold has been on American shelves since 1940, and its organic line specifically targets health conscious shoppers looking for a cleaner alternative to mainstream bread. Arnold is also owned by Bimbo Bakeries USA, the same parent company behind Ora Wheat and Sara Lee, meaning it shares a broader industrial sourcing network despite its more premium, artisan style branding. While the organic line does avoid synthetic preservatives, several standard Arnold varieties still include soybean oil, cultured wheat flour, and ascorbic acid. Additives that food science writers note are common workarounds bakers use to extend shelf life without listing a traditional chemical preservative by name. The takeaway: organic labeling addresses pesticide use in farming, but it doesn't mean the finished bread skips every form of processing. Next, a bread brand whose ingredient list includes something you'd more likely expect to find at a hardware store. Number 6. Sara Lee. Sara Lee has been a trusted name in American kitchens for 70 years, known for its soft, sandwich-friendly loaves and a warm, home-style brand image. The standard ingredient list includes calcium sulfate, a compound also used in construction materials like drywall, added here as a dough conditioner and firming agent rather than for any nutritional purpose. It's also owned by Bimbo Bakeries USA, tying it to the same industrial supply chain as Ora Wheat and Arnold. Food science experts note that calcium sulfate is generally recognized as safe by the FDA in small amounts, but its presence surprises most consumers who assume bread ingredients are limited to things you'd find in a home kitchen. The takeaway: recognized as safe doesn't always mean expected. Read the full label, not just the front of the bag. We're about a third through this list. If your everyday sandwich bread has already shown up here, let us know in the comments. You're definitely not alone. Number 5. Pepperidge Farm. Pepperidge Farm has built a premium, old-fashioned identity since 1937, with red and white packaging that suggests a small, quality-focused bakery rather than a massive corporation. The brand is owned by Campbell's, a company with over $10 billion in annual revenue, and several whole grain and rye varieties include a longer ingredient list than the branding suggests, featuring soybean oil, caramel color, and multiple dough conditioners to maintain consistency across mass production. Nutrition researchers point out that whole grain bread, in particular, can sometimes carry more additives than white bread because manufacturers work harder to compensate for the denser, less uniform texture that whole grains naturally produce. The takeaway: whole grain doesn't automatically mean fewer additives. Sometimes it means more. Next, a grocery store staple that keeps prices low by keeping quality questions unanswered. Number 4. Great Value Whole Wheat. Walmart's store brand exists to undercut name brands on price, and it succeeds by using a shorter production budget that shows up directly in the ingredient list. Several Great Value bread products list wheat flour rather than 100% whole wheat flour, a meaningful legal distinction, since wheat flour can still be predominantly refined white flour with only a portion of whole grain content added back in. The formula also includes soybean oil, sugar, and dough conditioners common across the budget bread category. Nutrition transparency researchers regularly point out that this labeling gap, wheat flour versus whole wheat flour, is one of the most common ways budget breads imply more fiber and nutrition than the product actually delivers. The takeaway: check for the word 100% in front of whole wheat before assuming you're getting a whole grain loaf. Next, a brand owned by the same company as Dave's Killer Bread, riding on very different branding. Number 3. Sunbeam Bread. Sunbeam is one of the most recognized bread mascots in American advertising history, the little girl in the bonnet appearing on shelves since the 1940s. It's owned by Flowers Foods, the same company behind Nature's Own and Dave's Killer Bread, giving it access to the same industrial ingredient sourcing across its full portfolio. The standard formula includes high fructose corn syrup, soybean oil, and calcium propionate, ingredients standard across most Flowers Foods products covered on this list. Consumer reviewers have specifically noted that Sunbeam's ingredient list has changed little over recent decades, even as public understanding of processed food additives has shifted considerably. The takeaway: a brand mascot's staying power doesn't reflect the ingredient list, staying simple. 2 spots left before the top of the list. And this next one is often the first bread health-conscious families switch to. Number 2, Dave's Killer Bread. Dave's Killer Bread built its entire identity on being the organic, health-forward option, with the founder's redemption story printed directly on every bag and USDA, organic and non-GMO project verification on the front. Flowers. Foods acquired the brand in 2015 for $275 million, expanding it from a regional Pacific Northwest bakery into a nationwide product almost overnight. In September 2024, a class action lawsuit was certified in California federal court, alleging the company misleads consumers about the protein content displayed on the front label of certain varieties. Flowers Foods has denied the allegations, and the case remains ongoing. The takeaway: organic certification addresses farming practices, but front label nutrition claims deserve their own separate check against the actual nutrition panel. And now, the brand that tops this list, not for one dramatic issue, but for containing an ingredient other countries have specifically restricted for safety reasons. Number 1, store brand bread using potassium, bromate, or azotocarbonamide. Several budget and mid-tier American bread brands still use potassium bromate or azotocarbonamide as dough conditioners to strengthen texture and speed up production. Potassium bromate is banned in the European Union, Canada, the United Kingdom, and China due to studies linking it to cancer in laboratory animals, and California requires a cancer warning label on products containing it under Proposition 65. Azotocarbonamide, sometimes nicknamed the yoga mat chemical because it's also used in foam plastics and rubber, is banned in the EU and Australia, though the FDA still permits it in the US in regulated amounts. It tops this list because these are the only 2 bread ingredients covered today that other major governments have restricted outright based on documented safety research, rather than simply raising nutrition concerns. Now that you know what to avoid, here are the 3 bread brands that actually keep it simple. 3 breads worth buying. Food for Life Ezekiel. 4-9 bread, made from sprouted whole grains and legumes with no added flour, no preservatives, and no dough conditioners, sold in the freezer section to preserve freshness naturally instead of chemically. Dave's Killer Bread Power Seed, specialty organic line, non-bromate. While the company faces the lawsuit noted above, its core organic ingredient list remains free of potassium bromate, azotocarbonamide, and high fructose corn syrup, making it a stronger pick than most mainstream competitors even amid its labeling scrutiny. Silver Hills Sprouted Bakery Bread, a Canadian family-owned company using sprouted whole grains with no dough conditioners, no high fructose corn syrup, and a short, recognizable ingredient list across its full product line. The real lesson here? Bread doesn't need a long ingredient list to taste good or last a few days. It needs flour, water, salt, and yeast. Before your next grocery run, flip the bag and count the ingredients. If it reads more like a chemistry set than a recipe, or if it stays soft on the counter for weeks without molding, that's worth a second thought. A 30-second label check can tell you more than any package design or slogan ever will. If this video changed how you'll shop next time, hit that like button, subscribe for more food investigations like this one, and tell us in the comments which bread brand surprised you most.